Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Facebook Live today. I am here with Danny again, and you may
Hello.
have watched last month's live with him as well. Today, we're going to be talking all about post-pandemic e-commerce. Well, Danny is, as our resident e-commerce expert. He's going to be talking about what life is going to be like selling online after the pandemic, how it's going to change, and maybe perhaps ways that as a business owner, you will need to adapt to cater to more sort of like multi-channel online and offline services. So I'm just going to give it over to Danny now. If you do have any questions for him, please pop them in the comments and we'll get round to them at the Q&A session at the end. So I'll just hand over to Danny now.
Who will try his best to share his screen so that you can all see the wonderful slides that have been prepared for this. Apparently, the host has disabled participant screen sharing, so I can't share my screen at the moment. So while that's being sorted out, yes, as Rachel pointed out, we should be talking about how e-commerce is potentially going to change as a result of the COVID pandemic and how lockdown may have affected people selling online, and also what the steps that people can take to foster their relationship with their customers moving forward with regards to maintaining the customer base that they've established while they've been online, and addressing any things that they might have done while in a rush to get online to sell during the lockdown. Some of this stuff will be with regards to customers who've moved away from a bricks and mortar shop more to selling online, but some of it will still apply to customers that are just looking to sell online, that have been previously selling online and are looking at ways to continue moving forward, but also looking at ways to improve what they're already doing in selling online.
The slides are now up for you, Danny, if you want to have it.
Let me click through them.
I will click through them if you just let me know.
Right, okie dokie. So if we can move on to the next slide, because I believe there is a graph on the next slide for me, or there will be in a moment. Yep, there we go. So we've seen an increase of 100% in orders between March 2020 through to, I'm assuming, since now, or to now. There's been a 100% increase in orders overall. There's been a significantly higher levels of orders from now than there were 2 years ago in 2019, and internal sales as a percentage of all retail is highest level than it's ever been. Looking at the graph, you can actually see that we've put points on this graph to explain sort of where different events during the pandemic occurred. So you can see that there is the first lockdown announced, and there's a massive spike on the yellow line, which represents 2020 in online sales, because obviously everywhere shut down and everyone went online. You can then see that it starts to, also it maintains for a little while at that level, then drops back down. Second lockdown's announced, massive spike again, culminating in Black Friday. And then you can see that as it drifted into the new year, things dropped again, because obviously there was the talk about people us coming out of lockdown. The high street started to reopen a little bit. Third lockdown gets announced. There's another bit of a jump back up, and you can see that now that the high street is starting to reopen, there is still a drop in the online sales, but it's still significantly higher than it was 2 years ago. And had the lockdown not happened maybe in 2020, you'd probably find that yellow line would have sat somewhere between the two lines. So there would have still been the general increase that we're seeing as a whole in regards to selling online, but you would have found that 2020 wouldn't have been such a high level of sales had there not been the lockdown. So it's not unexpected that the level of orders this year have dropped as the high street reopens. But what we are finding is that with various bits of the high street not coming back, so certain businesses have closed down during this time, that you will find that the level of sales on the internet versus the high street will be higher than it was originally projected to be. This has also seen an increase in options like buy now, pay later. So people putting that on their website has definitely helped with the ability for customers to make purchases, larger purchases online than they maybe would have done previously, and would have been more willing to go to a shop and make a purchase that way. We've seen a big increase in the number of customers that were selling like that had bricks and mortar shops that were then increasing. Or yeah, try that sentence again. We saw a big increase in the number of customers that had bricks and mortar shops that were now looking to come online, and that in itself did create some questions about what people were doing to get online very, very quickly, and maybe areas that they weren't focusing on that they should have been focusing on to help them get online as quickly as possible. So they were potentially skipping over certain steps to get the site up and running as quickly as possible. But it's worth now taking a step back to have a look at what changes can be made to increase those sales, and that's something that we will touch on in a little while. If we move on to the next slide, please, Rachel. So this is about the areas that we saw the largest growths in selling online. So these are areas that were obviously things that people couldn't do anymore during lockdown. So a lot of people were then buying their food online. Some people would obviously, with the supermarket still being open, people were still going to the supermarkets, but a lot of people either didn't feel comfortable in the supermarkets, at least in the early stages of the lockdown, or they just found it was actually easier once they started utilizing home delivery on food. Office supplies, obviously, again, will still benefit moving forward from selling online, but also being having seen that initial rush to buy from them during lockdowns, that all three of them, that these industries will continue to see maybe not growth but sustained sales due to the fact that people have started buying from these places online. They've got used to that way of shopping now, and especially with people that have maybe not bought online as much previously, and then had their hand forced a little bit more by the lockdown situation, meaning that they've got used to that online selling, especially if they've set up accounts or if they've signed up for reward schemes, loyalty points, etc., which again we will talk about in a moment with regards to maintaining a customer base. But you'll find that a lot of these industries will look to maintain their level of sales. Obviously, nothing's ever guaranteed in this world, so who knows, that could be completely wrong and these industries will all plummet, but I seriously doubt that is going to happen. And what will be interesting to see is what new industries will benefit as a result of the reopening side of things. So all of these ones benefited as a result of being locked down. As the high street reopens and as restrictions are lifted moving forward, will we see other industries then benefit? I've mentioned previously about like the hobby side of things, so a lot of like outdoor activities will probably look to sell quite well over the next few months as restrictions are lifted and as the weather is nicer. So it wouldn't surprise me to see things like barbecues and outdoor play products being high growth areas, at least over the next few months. If you move on to the next slide for me. It also help if I moved on my preview, otherwise I don't really know what I'm talking about. So this has been a big one for a lot of people, and I know it's something that a lot of people have been asking about for a long time. It's been something that obviously we were all aware that changes were happening back in January, and as things have moved forward, we've been given more information about what those changes were going to actually entail. So there is a new change with regards to EU VAT coming in tomorrow. A lot of you will have already received, in fact, all of you should have already received information from ourselves with regards to what processes you need to take with regards to the new rules about selling items to Europe and charging VAT or not charging VAT, as the case may be. The problem is, as with any industry, when these changes come along, even if we're made aware of them way in advance, there's time taken to update processes to deal with these changes. But also, while we were all aware that there were going to be some changes coming up, we didn't know what form those changes were going to take. We don't know if these are the final changes that are going to be in place. It may well be that there's going to be further changes to the rules moving forward. So we're trying to sort of stay as flexible as we can so that our customers can stay as flexible as they can. And it's obviously going to have an impact on everyone, but at the moment it seems to be relatively minimal, the amount of impact that it's having on customers, especially if you're already in a position where you're not charging VAT on the items that you're sending to Europe. But it is something worth keeping in mind moving forward, that as these rules change and as the Brexit procedure progresses, that there will potentially be more changes being put forward by whether that's the EU or whether it's the British government. Whichever way it ends up going, there will be some more issues to consider moving forward. Obviously, it's potentially creating an increase in administrative hours that people are having to spend working on their website and what changes they need to implement. It is something that obviously is having an impact on delivery charges and import charges for businesses and customers. So not just about you selling to your customers, but if you're getting supplies from overseas, you need to take into account that those changes will have an effect on the time it might take for those items to be received by yourself, and the times that that you're then able to then send it on, or the cost of bringing it into the country. So are you in a position where you can absorb those costs? Are you in a position where you're going to have to pass those costs on to your customers? And if you are going to pass those costs on to your customers, how are you best positioned to then compete with competitors who are maybe able to bring in more products at a lower and therefore absorb that cost at a lower rate to their customers? So obviously, these things have all been affected by the pandemic as well, in that there have been all sorts of delays to items being shipped across, which has then been exacerbated by the changes of Brexit. But these are all things that we're suggesting that people consider moving forward. And obviously, it's not my job. I'm not a financial expert. I do not have training in finances. So if it's something that you do want to discuss more, we do recommend obviously speaking to somebody who has financial training, whether that's an accountant or somebody with any kind of legal expertise, just because they are going to be able to offer you more unique and in-depth advice based on your circumstances. I can offer general help, EKM can offer general help, but it's going to get to a point where if you're genuinely concerned, or you think that your situation is different and isn't going to be able to be addressed by whoever you're with, whether it's EKM or a competitor, that it is worth seeking further financial and legal advice on how it's best for you to proceed. Could I have the next slide, please? So the level of trading businesses in the UK has grown over the last 6 months, from 77% to 87% even, with furloughs levels decreasing over that time, which is great for pretty much everybody involved. I mean, I don't think anybody wanted to really be furloughed any longer. And I think obviously as the trading levels of businesses grow, so does the economy. And that's something that I think a lot of people have been worried about recently, and how that was going to affect especially small businesses moving forward. And that in itself being exacerbated by seeing the larger corporations like Debenhams and Thorntons and many others having to close their doors during this time. And I think for some of those people looking to start up their new business, that's actually presented quite an interesting opportunity, because it's given them marketplaces that had been previously dominated by one big company that could now potentially have room for a lot more smaller companies, or even see a mid-sized company coming in and stepping up to take that role as the main company within that industry. So it's opened up a lot of options for a lot of people. And I think while it's sad to see businesses go, and obviously nobody wants to see people lose their jobs, it has in itself created an opportunity and opening in a marketplace that there maybe wasn't one previously. We've seen a lot of small businesses being created as a result of these job losses. So a lot of people have gone, well, okay, if I'm being laid off from this place, or if this company's closing its doors, now's maybe the time for me to follow my dream, do something I love, and look at moving forward and setting up my own business. So you will find that as somebody new coming into to a marketplace, you might find you're actually competing with a lot of other small companies that are just starting out at the same time. But as I said, with the loss of the larger companies that are within those industries, that's creating an opportunity for people to come in and take a cut. Because if you think about, if Debenhams, for example, had a 10% market share, if they've gone, 1% of that 10% for each of those new small businesses that are coming along is still a large number of customers, and it's a large amount of money to be dealing with. So yes, it's bad to see the bigger companies go, but as people that are looking to help smaller businesses, and as people that may be looking to set up smaller businesses, it's definitely creating those opportunities. Obviously, we've seen a rush of businesses looking to get online, so bricks and mortar shops looking to sell online. I don't think that moving forward, as there is after the pandemic, we'll see that bricks and mortar shops will stop being a thing, or that people won't want to continue being bricks and mortar shops. I think what we'll be looking at is much more of a balance between the two, that you'll have you'll have shop owners that are selling both online and in physical locations. And it's about maximizing your availability to the people that's buying online, but also still being able to offer that in-store service, but also not competing with yourself. So, you don't want to be offering something on the website that's a lot less than it would be in the shop, because you're just going to drive customers away from your physical shop. But obviously, if you're competing online and your overheads are less when you're selling online, then you can look to offer cheaper prices online than you maybe could in a physical shop. So we have seen a lot of people rush from bricks and mortar shops to selling online. There are some areas, as I mentioned before, that maybe they've not considered when they've been rushing in. So if you've been trying to sell online very quickly, then you might not have done all of the things that you might have done had you taken a bit of time to get online. So if we move on to the next slide, we're actually discussing the rush to get online. So it's things like, when you set up your site, obviously one of the first things you'll do is you'll get your domain name sorted. But in the rush to get online, did you consider all of the other domain names that you might want? Now might be the time, as the high street reopens, that you start thinking about, well, what are my competitors, and what variations of my business name could I have as my domain name? So if you've got the party store as your website name, you might want to consider the party shop as being an alternative name that people might search for when they are looking for your business. So if you've only got the .co.uk version of your domain, have you got the .com version of your domain? Have you got a similar sounding name that people might search for? Is there a competitor that has a very similar name to yourself that might then try and register something similar to yourself, or even your own name, as well as with a different .co.uk, .com, .eu, etc.? Is it worth looking at these various domain names that you might not have considered? Do you have a product that is uniquely yours that you could have a URL for that then points to your main site that still drives traffic? So it's about considering all of the ways that your customers are going to try and find you online. Organic search results, fantastic. Everybody wants them. It'd be great to have them all the time. But if you can register domain names that are also then going to lead customers to you or make you easier to remember, then that's going to really, really help your business out. Getting your social media all linked up, getting it all ready to obviously display what you're selling on your site, whether that's linking your Facebook shop so that you can actually sell the items on Facebook that then drive them over to your site, whether it's in Instagram accounts so that you can be posting about people who bought your products, or sharing the stories of people who bought your products. Getting your social media linked to your site at the initial setup stage probably isn't one of the top priorities, especially if you're looking to go from a physical shop to online very, very quickly. You'll have probably focused on getting your products out there, getting your discounts set up, getting your delivery methods, your payment methods all set up, and they were all really important. But it's now a chance to look at, okay, what didn't we do when we were first setting up, and what things can we now look at adding to the site to make the the selling online experience better for our customers. And whether that's about how they're finding you or how they interact with you, then social media is definitely going to help you with that. And it's time, you've now should have the time to sort of take stock and go, okay, we need to look at updating our logo on Facebook, because we're actually using the logo from 2 years ago. We need to update our banner image. We need to make sure that our catalog is on Facebook, so that people can go from Facebook to our site to make their purchase. Again, in the rush to get online, a lot of people will have done a lot of these things, and this is by no means saying that you shouldn't have done these when you were first setting up, but these are hopefully things that if anyone's missed, they're reminders that they're worth having and that they will help them moving forward. So setting up a newsletter process is a great way to retain customers that have already bought from you, but it's also a great way of communicating with customers who are thinking about buying from you. So maybe they've come to the website, they bought from you previously when you were a brick and mortar shop. Because of the lockdown, they've not been able to buy from you in a physical location, so they found you online, but they don't know what the latest deals are because they used to just go in the shop and see what was on sale, or they used to talk to the staff that was there and ask them about the latest offers. Obviously, a newsletter is something that I think everybody knows what it's there for, what it does, how it works now, but you'd be surprised the number of people who don't have it on their site, or maybe don't have it in as a prominent a position as they should on their site. Within EKM, you can get them to sign up through having it on like the theme itself, having it in a pop-up and having it on the checkout flow. And I think some people maybe view that as being too much, and you can choose which of those ones you want, but I think if you give your customer the opportunity to sign up in 3 different points, then there's a good chance they will actually sign up. Whereas if you offer it to them once, they might go, oh yeah, I need to remember and I'll come back and sign up, and then they just don't. So it's definitely worth having it on in as many places as you can without it obviously oversaturating and without it becoming the thing that you're trying to push. At the end of the day, you still want customers to buy products. That's what they're there to do. It's not actually about getting them to sign up to the newsletter. But if we can get them to sign up to the newsletter after they've bought a product, or if we can get them to sign up to the newsletter instead of not buying a product at all, then it's definitely worth doing. And I think it's something that some people kind of, in a rush to get online, it would have been very easy to overlook that, as it can be quite a job to get that all set up, to find the right email provider that you want to use, to get your mail shots all set up and everything. But it's definitely important to consider moving forward, because it's about once lockdown is fully, or the lockdown restrictions are fully removed, how are we going to maintain those relationships with our customers? I mentioned before when first setting up about getting products on as quickly as possible, getting your delivery methods, your payment methods, and getting your discounts set up. And I think again, it's if there were offers that people were offering at the time that they were coming online, they will have looked to put those discounts online straight away. But now's a chance to kind of go back and look, okay, what new discounts do we want to offer? Do we still want to offer the same discounts we were offering before? Are there any new discounts that would look at running alongside the discounts that we've got? Are there any new discounts that we'd look to replace the current ones with? And it's worth taking that moment, because again, if we're moving into a new period of time post lockdown, post-pandemic lockdown, then we can sort of re-establish what the narrative is moving forward, what we want to sell, what we want to push as the product. So maybe you've got a bunch of products that now that we're coming out of the winter months and moving into the summer months, you need to clear out of your physical shop or your warehouse. Maybe you've got new ranges coming in, so you need to make space for them, or you've got new ranges that coming in that you just want to promote. It now is the time to sort of have a think about what discounts that you've already got, but you may have also only added 5 or 6 to do the bare minimum, do the bare bones of what discounts you were offering before. And now you can sort of have a think about what you want to offer as a online retailer, especially if you've never sold online before, what you want to offer your customers moving forward to keep them coming back to your website. Obviously, you can have different discounts as well. So you can have a discount that you sell only online. So you might want to do, if you've got new ranges coming in, you might want to have an online only discount that obviously you're not offering in your physical shop. So there's lots of opportunities there, and I think it's worth having another look now that you've got online, now that you've already started selling online. What did you maybe skip over setting up when you first set up the site? This is another one that I think a lot of people will have probably skipped over when they were first setting up their shop online, because it's quite a big job when you first start doing it. Once you sort of get into the flow of it, it becomes a lot easier. But it's setting up related products within a product to be able to resell them, or to upsell them rather, sorry. So that would be things like if you've got a hat on your website and you want to offer it with a tie as part of you can tell I'm high fashion. I think that you sell hats and ties together. But yeah, if you wanted to sell two items together, you might want to put like related items together. If you were looking to put, you maybe have, again, an item that you think everyone should have, regardless of what other item they're looking at. There's nothing to stop you having the same product be related to all of the other products on your site. But it obviously, because it can be a time-consuming job, it's one that a lot of people will have probably skipped over when they were first looking at setting up their site. So it's definitely worth having a look, seeing if the products that you've set as your related products are still relevant. You don't really want to sell a related product that is the same product that you're already on, but in a different color, because some businesses may want to do that, but the majority of them, you'll probably benefit more from selling a product that is a similar product, maybe a cheaper alternative, or a slightly more expensive version, to kind of get your customers to look at what they're buying. But also you might want to sell items that are almost completely unrelated, but are just almost like that impulse purchase. So if you've got items that are a couple of pounds, and for example, like you're selling plants online, you might want to sell plant food as a related product, because it's something that's worth having, and it's relatively cheap, so you can do it almost as like an upsell impulse purchase, like they do at the supermarket checkouts with the sweets and chewing gum and so on. And I think that's definitely something worth sort of going back to and thinking about. Creating any new promotions. So again, we've kind of touched on this a little bit with the discounts, but at the same time, you might want to go, okay, well, now that the high street's reopening, we want to offer customers the ability to collect from in store. So you might want to offer free delivery on orders over a certain amount, regardless of whether they collect in store, because you can offer both alongside each other. You might want to look at if you're doing any kind of order online by this time, get it in 2 working days. So if you order by midday, you get it in 2 working days. There's a bunch of features within EKM that allow you to talk about urgency of your product. So whether that's things like, as I say, buy by 12 p.m. and get it in the next 2 working days, whether that's about explaining that the products only have so many of them left, so you only have 5 of these left in stock, whether it's about a countdown till a sale ends. There's a lot of different promotions that you could be running on a product level, but there's also obviously the promotions that you could be running as a site. So maybe you need to look at things like your carousel on your homepage. Are you still talking about the latest products and the latest offers on your carousel on your homepage? Have your promo boxes been updated? Have your USP, unique selling point options, been updated at the header? As your business has changed over the last year, have you made sure that all of the information that you're presenting to your customers on the website changed over the last year as well? If we move on to the next slide. So this is about some of the things that I've touched on earlier about how you can look at nurturing that relationship with your new customers. We are going to talk a little bit more about like how you can run the two alongside each other, so the physical shop and the online. So at the moment, this is just purely dealing with the online side of things, especially the new online customers that you may have got over the last year. So obviously I mentioned about making sure your social media was set up, and that was an important thing that some people had potentially missed out on doing. And the main reason for doing that obviously is engaging with those new customers on social media. If you're not engaging with your customers on social media and you're not speaking to them about the new products that you've got, or answering questions that they've maybe got, or if they've almost delivering customer service via social media. So if a customer's had a bad experience for some reason, if you're not the one answering those questions, somebody else will be. And you don't always want somebody else to be answering those questions for you, because they might not be giving the right answers. They might not be giving the right information. You might have a customer, as he's had a bad experience. I hope none of you will have done, but you might have a customer that's had a bad experience. And then if somebody else has also had a bad experience, they're going to then latch onto that post. And if you're not addressing those issues quickly, then those things just grow, and it's definitely worth addressing them as soon as you can. But obviously there's a lot of positive stuff on social media that you can engage with your customers on. If they've got if they're doing any kind of videos about the products, unboxing videos, anything like that, if they're showing you how they're using the products in the real world. So if you're selling, again, like hats or shoes or anything like that, people love uploading the pictures of themselves wearing their new clothing. They'll talk about, whether they bought it for a wedding or anything like that. So if you can engage with those people on social media and you can help push them, it creates that back and forth between you and a customer, and it will help create a loyal customer base. Speaking of loyalty points, again, something that a lot of people maybe didn't set up when they first looked at selling online because they were in a rush to get online. Loyalty points, obviously, we all know how they work. We've all got Tesco Club cards or Asda cards or Morrison's cards. Actually, I don't think Asda have one, but anyway, it doesn't matter. We've all seen loyalty points. We all know how they work, and they're great because obviously they will get people to come back and buy from you. I, as much as probably anyone else, will have gone back to somebody, maybe even if they're charging a little bit more, because I know I'm going to earn loyalty points. I will go to Morrison's to go get my petrol because I'm getting loyalty points from Morrison's for buying my petrol. Might not be the cheapest petrol station near me, but if I'm going to get loyalty points there, then I'm going to go there over somewhere that doesn't give me loyalty points that's maybe a penny cheaper. Whether that actually mathematically is correct or not, I'm sure somebody will probably point out in the Q&A section that it's not mathematically, doesn't make sense if it's a penny cheaper, but that just shows you how good loyalty points can be, that I'm willing to still go somewhere, even if it is a penny more, to go and buy from them, because I know I'm going to get my loyalty points, and that in turn is going to reward me later. Obviously, loyalty points create that sense of loyalty that we're talking about, and that is about trying to get customers to keep coming back. That's the thing that you want here. Obviously, we want customers to make purchases, but we want customers to keep coming back, because you can advertise to one group of customers and get a customer that comes in. But if you've advertised to them and you only get one purchase out of it, then your return on investment is what it is. If you advertise to customers and you get one customer who makes a purchase, but then comes back in 3 weeks' time and makes another purchase, you've not had to advertise to them again. They've come back because you've done these other things. They've come back because you've given them loyalty points, because you've engaged with them on social media, because they signed up to the newsletter. It's all about the ways that you can get those customers to interact with you and keep coming back. That's what every business wants. Nurturing relevant content via email marketing. So again, making sure that the information you're sending to those customers is relevant to them. There's no point in just spamming them all with the latest offers if the latest offers are the same every week. There's no point in spamming them with information about a sale that's not until 6 months' time. There's a lot of different areas that you can make sure that the information you're presenting to your customers is relevant. And at the end of the day, if you're not giving your customers relevant information, you're going to switch them off. They might just not open the email. They might open it but not read it, and they might even unsubscribe. And obviously, we want to try and avoid that. So it's always worth trying to give them relevant information. I know that it was something that Rachel spoke up in length on the last live that we did, so I'm sure that's around for people to still watch. So it's definitely worth going back and watching Rachel's advice for nurturing relevant content and about cross marketing with blogs and things like that. So it's definitely worth spending some time now that we're moving out of the pandemic to sort of see, okay, well, how can we get these customers to come back to us online with information via the newsletter and via the email address that we've already captured for them. Customer accounts. So again, it's a feature that you can install within EKM, and it's, obviously whether you're selling with us or anyone else, it's still a feature definitely worth having. It's something that, again, it's relatively easy to set up, but it's something that a lot of people may have skipped over, especially if you're selling products that are lots of repeat customers. So if you're selling vape liquids, or you're selling food or drink, or if you're selling anything where customers maybe are coming back every week, every other week, it's definitely worth giving them the option to have customer accounts, whether that gives them the ability to just replace an order they've already placed again, whether it's about them being able to view their previous orders, it lets them save their addresses, it lets them check out much faster. And again, obviously, as I'm sure you'll all know from selling online, the quicker customers are checking out, the less likely that purchase is to fall down at some point during the checkout flow. So if you can get customers to create accounts and log in, obviously things like loyalty points require them to have logins anyway, because you can't assign loyalty points unless they're using the same account over and over again. But these things will definitely help to nurture that relationship with your customer and get them to keep coming back. Again, I'm more likely to buy from a website if I've already created an account for them than I am from a website that I'm going to then have to create a new account for to make this new purchase. And obviously, if you can offer them any kind of discounts to keep them coming back. So obviously the slide mentions about 10% off the next purchase for signing up to the newsletter, but again, you're kind of doing that with things like the loyalty points, because that's going to give them the ability to redeem those points against their future purchases. You could obviously mention discounts in the newsletter, which is going to encourage them to sign up to the newsletter in the first place, but only people that have got the newsletter are going to know what the discount code is. And so the average customer that's maybe coming to your site for the first time wouldn't know those things. So it's always worth kind of trying to do all of these things, obviously, and the more of them that you do, the better you're going to find that they all perform. But yeah, it's definitely worth considering what information you want to put in the newsletters, what discounts you maybe want to offer customers to keep them coming back. If we move on to the next slide. So this is about so when we were talking before, we were talking about obviously the new customers coming onto the website. This is more about how you can continue to help all of the customers that come onto your website. But also, I was asked a question on the last second to last live that I did about balancing the customer experience you're able to give in a physical environment, so in your bricks and mortar shop, versus one on a digital environment on your online shop. And it is very hard to replicate the interactions between your customers and your staff that they get in a physical shop, because you've got the physical products there, you've got a face-to-face interaction that a lot of people like, especially again after being locked in their houses for the last year and a half. A lot of people might be just very happy to see another face and actually interact with them face to face rather than via a screen or something like that. But you will also have a lot of people that, now that lockdown's lifted, their situation hasn't changed. They're still, whether they're immunosuppressed or whether they just actually don't want to be out and about. A lot of people like selling online, buying online rather. You can see that from things like the takeaway apps and the fact that people don't phone takeaways anymore, they just do it all online now. So there is a lot to be said for offering your customers the best of both, giving them the opportunity to both interact with you in a face-to-face environment through a physical shop, but obviously if we can emulate that as much as possible, but also in a way that means that customers can still have that experience, but also if they don't want that experience, it's not being forced upon them. So things like live chat systems are great, because it just obviously means that you can have customers asking you questions like they would have been able to in a physical shop. They could just come up to you and ask you a question. Live chat system is the closest thing you're going to get to that in an online environment. Your contact us page, making sure that has relevant information, making sure that it's all up to date, making sure that the best ways for those people to reach you is on the contact us page, because again, customers may not want to do live chat. They might find the whole live chat process something they don't enjoy, in which case they would much rather just send an email and get a reply back and do it in their own time. So it's definitely worth having a contact us page with relevant contact information. Ideally, if you can have a contact us form on there, then that's great. But if not, maybe just having an email address so that people can still reach out to you and contact you about it. Obviously, with physical shop, returns processes are you take the item into the shop with you and you then discuss the reasons for the return. And selling online, that's a little bit harder because it's the whole back and forth about getting the item back to you and discussing what was wrong with it and why a customer is looking to return it. So in alongside your contact us form, some people do look to merge them as merge them as one big page rather, but you can also obviously have them as two separate web pages. It's worth having clear and relevant information on a returns page so that your customers know what processes they need to follow to make a return, how they need to contact you, what steps they need to do to get the item back to yourself. And that's about giving your customers confidence in buying from you online, knowing that they can return those items if for whatever reasons they might need to. The last thing anyone wants to do is involve payment gateways and have dispute payments and asking for refunds that way and so on. So obviously having a returns policy on there that makes it as easy for your customers as possible and tries to make it as easy as going into a shop would be to return an item. Multiple product images. Again, we touched on this in the last Facebook Live, so it's definitely worth going back and having a watch of that to see a bit more information about that. But again, it's about trying to emulate the experience of going into the physical shop and being able to pick up the item, look at the item, decide that item is the right size that you want. And again, in fact, a bit these last three can kind of all be wrapped into one big point because it's about trying to replicate the experience of being able to see the item, hold the item, get a sense of scale of the item. So you need to make sure you've got as many product images as you can on there. You know, I want to see the item from the front, I want to see it from the top, I want to see it from the left, I want to see it from the right, etc. Maybe if you've got some images of the item in a real world environment, so you know your default image is it on a white background, so you can just highlight the product. But maybe if you've got some lifestyle shots as well, so you can see it out in the real world, whether that's in a physical room or whether that's being worn by a model or whatever. It's, you know, having those extra images and being able to see those product images makes me more confident in buying the item from you. It makes me more confident the item is the item that I actually want, and it's not just from the left on, that shoe looks exactly like the shoe I want. Whereas if you've got multiple images, I can be like, okay, yeah, no, it looks the same on the front, or there's not a weird design that I don't like on the back of the shoe or something like that. Product videos, obviously, again, will allow you to give that sense of space, and that's that almost like 3D movement of the item that you don't get unless you're in the physical shop. And then detailed description. So again, if I'm buying a wardrobe or something like that, I'm going to need to know exactly how big it is, especially if I'm buying online. You know, if I can go into a physical shop and see the item, then I'm like, okay, yeah, I've got a sense of how big it will be and how much room it's going to take up in my house. If you're selling online, if you can give me as much information about the product I'm about to buy as possible, then obviously that's going to help me make an informed decision and going to mean that less likely need to use returns policies or live chat to communicate with you to find out that information. If there's going to be some things that customers are going to want to ask you that they can't, that you can't predict, that they're going to want to ask you, which is why obviously still having the contact us page and the live chat systems are going to be a great way of replicating that retailer customer relationship that you would have in store. But trying to sort of preempt any of these questions as much as you possibly can is definitely going to help increase sales and get customers through the process as quickly as possible. If we move on to the next slide. So it's a phrase I hate, but it's a phrase that I wrote in this presentation, so I only have myself to blame. But the new normal, moving forward, what are we looking at? And it's about the fact that things aren't going to go back to how they were in 2019. Arguably they probably shouldn't go back to how they were in 2019. There's a lot of changes that have happened, and there's a lot of processes that people have brought in. That means that moving forward, we've got more options than we had before, whether that's things like shops that only were physically on the high street are now also selling online, whether that's about changes in the way that online retail works, meaning that you can offer new things like buy now, pay later options or split payment options. Obviously in the last 2 years, lots of people have made lots of changes. So there is going to be some adjustment period anyway, moving forward, after we all return back to whatever the normal is going to be. But this section was about talking about whether you want to focus on just selling online, whether you want to, whether when we return to physical shops, are you going to move away from selling online, which I think, I'm biased, obviously it's my job, but I think moving away from selling online would be a mistake for anyone, as we saw in the slides at the start of the presentation. Online selling is increasing, and it always increases. Like every year it goes up. Yes, there was a massive spike in 2020 due to lockdown, and yes, there's been a decrease overall, or decrease this year, sorry, versus 2020, but overall it's much higher than it was in 2019. So I think moving forward, we're looking at a lot more people selling online, and we obviously will see a return to the high street as well. So if we move on to the next slide, here are some points obviously about that multi-channel strategy. So looking at how you can sell both in a physical shop and selling online. It's worth looking at how where the percentage for the best profit is for yourselves. So if you're going to make more money selling in a physical shop, how can you use your website to drive people to buy in your physical shop? If you actually make more money selling online, which is probably more likely because of the way that overheads and storing and shipping and so on work, how can you look at moving people from your bricks and mortar shop to online without just making it so that your bricks and mortar shop isn't relevant? And again, this will vary from business to business, but obviously there are some big advantages to being able to sell online as well as having a bricks and mortar shop. Maybe somebody once travel restrictions are lifted and things like that, if somebody might come into your shop in Manchester because they happen to be in Manchester for the day, but they don't live in Manchester, they might live in London. So do you have a way that they can then order from you online that means that they can still get those items that they bought from you in your physical shop without having to travel up to Manchester every time they want those items? It's definitely worth, especially as well if you're a single unit business. So if you are one bricks and mortar shop in the middle of wherever, you're opening yourself up to selling to customers all around the country, all around Europe, all around the world that wouldn't ever be able to physically come to your shop. So it's not about necessarily saying that everybody has to move online and that you're no longer going to sell in your physical location. But if you can promote those items in your shop and get people to come back to you online because they can't physically come back to you in the shop in 6 months' time because they live somewhere else, then obviously selling online is going to be a great way moving forward for you to capture those things. So it's definitely worth thinking about how you can move customers from one version of your shop, whether it's the online one or the physical one, to the other. And it will, as I say, it will vary from business to business, and there is no golden rule that everyone should follow to move their customers from one to the other. And you may even find that you don't want to move customers from one to the other and you're quite happy them being two entirely separate entities. But it's definitely worth considering, and it's there are lots of different ways that you could have a look at moving those across. Again, we mentioned about discounts for online. I kind of touched on this previously about offering special like free gifts or discounts for only buying online, which is about obviously driving customers to make the purchases online rather than in the physical shop. Again, social media into the bricks and mortar side of things. So we've spoken about social media and the online side of things, but you can also obviously use your social media to promote people coming into the shops once the lockdown restrictions have been lifted. So, if you can only have 6 people in your shop at the moment due to social distancing and so on, you might want to then use social media to promote the fact that you're fully open after July, if and when the restrictions are lifted, that you can have 30 people in your shop, and you may even want to run some kind of promotion to the 30th customer that comes into your shop that day, or you don't don't want to do the whole hide something around your shop and first one to find it gets something, because that's how you end up with a wrecked shop. But it's that bit of, can we use our social media to get people to come into the physical shop? Because we're already using it to get them onto the online shop. So how are we looking at bringing them in? And I think, again, there's opportunities with the lifting of lockdown restrictions to encourage people to come back to the high street and make those purchases. And then obviously, you're going to want to make changes about seasonality. So whether it's now we're I say entering into the summer season and you're looking to make a summer sale, or selling products specifically related to the summer months. Obviously, people who've sold in physical stores will have been doing this for years, and they will know that they need to change up their window display, or they need to move products around on the end units to promote them. And it's the same with your online shop, whether that's selling them on the homepage, whether that's moving a category so it's more prominent on the navigation bar. Any kind of thing that you can do to promote newer products, but also making sure that both your website and your physical shop are in sync with each other. You don't want to be selling, you don't want to be promoting winter items on your website when you're in the middle of selling all your summer stuff on the shop. So it's definitely worth trying to create a sense of uniformity between your physical shop and your online outlet. If we move on, I think we are on to the Q&A, and I'm aware that I've talked for quite a long time, so I don't know how many questions we've got or how long I've got to answer them, but I'm happy to answer any questions that we may have.
Thank you so much for that, Danny. That was really, really great. I think there's a lot of useful tips and tricks in there, especially if you have run a brick and mortar for years, but you're not so sure about doing the online stuff. We've got tons of resources on our blog, on our YouTube channel, with videos, with tips on specific topics like email marketing and stuff like that. And even if you have started out as an online business, but you're now looking to go and start your first brick and mortar shop, you want to be using your social media to maybe run a bit of an incentive to get people to your physical shop from your online, if they're within your local area and stuff. So I think going forward, the future of e-commerce is really both brick and mortar and e-commerce working in tandem with each other. And I think as a business owner, you need to start thinking about making your strategies work for both and not just one over the other. So we have I spotted one question from Talk Business With, and it's a question for you, Danny. They said, great presentation. We have a question. What are the most common traits you see in the most successful e-commerce business owners?
In the e-commerce business owners is the interesting bit there, because you ask me what the most common traits are in the websites or the businesses themselves, but in the business owners, there's going to be some cliches in my answer, and I apologize for that. But obviously, you've got to have a passion for what you're selling. Like the websites that do really well are selling things that they care about, that they're knowledgeable about, that they want to see people using. That's not to say that you can't make a successful business selling just anything, but you'll find that the ones that really are passionate about what they do are the ones that are successful, because they're willing to put in the extra time that's required to make those businesses a success. Motivated, drive, all of the cliched buzzwords, but I think the main one of the big ones that a lot of people maybe don't consider is what do you want to sell and why do you want to sell it? Like, if you've got a good reason to sell that item and it's not just I want to make money, then you're going to find that you enjoy the job more. You're going to find that you're more successful at the job, because you're willing to put in those extra hours to make the business a success that you might not have been willing to do. It's very easy for me to sit here and I do a 9-to-5 job, and I help my customers out with their businesses and all that, and I don't see anywhere near the amount of extra hours that they put in. They're working weekends, they're working till 3 a.m. in some cases to make sure that their new products are on their websites. Obviously we do everything we can to make that process as quick and easy as possible for them, but you've got to have that desire. And if the drive is just to get online and sell, then as I say, you can be very successful doing that, but you're going to be less willing to put in the extra time that's required. Whereas I think if you're selling a product you truly believe in, or in an industry that you're passionate about, then that extra level of effort required comes a lot easier.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Danny. We don't have any more questions yet, but if you do have any more questions for us after this live, which will be posted on our YouTube, Facebook and LinkedIn's, if you want to watch it back, then please pop it in the comments and we will get back to you. We are actually doing another Facebook Live next week on the 7th at 12 p.m. With Jonathan Main from Moore and Smalley, and he's going to be talking about the EU VAT changes that are taking place tomorrow. So if you do have any questions about that, more generic ones than specific ones, then please come and join us next Wednesday, and I'm sure Jonathan will be able to give you some really good advice. But as we said before, always consult your own financial advisor.
Yep.
So yeah, thank you so much for today, Danny. I think it's been really great, and thank you everybody for joining us, and we hope to see you next week.
Hope it was useful.